Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Shane Walsh podcast. So today is a question that I have got off a fair few people in relation to the new thing around kind of can AI really help you to count your calories from a photo? So if you've been sitting in a restaurant, the food arrives, it looks amazing, and instead of actually choosing to eat it, you pull out your phone, take a picture, and the app tells you it's 780 calories. But then is this accurate? Is it not? Or is it just digital guesswork dressed up in AI? So we need to look at it from a point of view of looking into how the whole AI powered calorie tracking works regarding photos, what the science actually says, how accurate these apps really are, and what the benefits and the drawbacks are. Because with like anything, there's always going to be a positive and a negative, and what can be tweaked and what can be done around it kind of to kind of make it a little bit more realistic. So we need to look at first look at what's actually happening when you snap a food of your meal. Okay. So there are three steps when you get your phone out and you get your app or whatever it is, and you get your phone out and you start taking pictures of it. Step one is the food detection and the identification. Step two is the portion size estimation. And step three is the calorie mapping to a database. So for step one, most apps use something called a convolutional neural network. This is where my inner nerd comes out. So this is kind of like a deep learning model, and it's trained on millions and millions of labeled food images. So in 2024, they did a systematic review looking at 52 studies and found that 79% of them use this architecture behind it. And then the AI learns to say that brown thing on the left is chicken, that white mound is rice, the green stuff is broccoli. That's me oversimplifying something, but it's essentially what it is. And the step two is where it gets harder for the actual AI to work. So the AI needs to estimate the volume. So how much chicken, how much rice, how much vegetables, how many carbs. And some apps use the depth sensor on maybe the newer models of the iPhones or whatever it might be. And others rely on visual cues like the size of the plate or your hand for scale. And some just guess based on average portion looks like. So this step is the one that causes the most errors in reality. And step three essentially maps what it identifies to a nutrition database, usually the USDA database. Now, this is improving and may have improved, but it tries to multiply these formulations and multiplies out the macros. So in theory, it's simple, tricky in practice because identical foods can vary hugely from database to database, how they're cooked, raw, what brand they are, how much butter was used, etc. So what are we going to actually look at right now? We're going to look at what the studies are actually saying, because we need to look at the numbers. And if you're like anyone or an accountant or anything like that, you deal with numbers, because there's peer-reviewed studies on this now, not just the in-store reviews and in-app reviews. And the biggest kind of sample size came from a 2024 systematic review published in the PMC. And what this research analyzes about 52 studies published between 2010 and 2023. Now, AI has improved since 2023 drastically. It's improved since 2025. And it's always going to be improving. So looking at it, how well AI performs at identifying foods and estimating calories from images, they're finding the calorie error rates range from 0.1% to 38.3%. That's a massive range. And the key variable, complexity of the food. So imagine if you were getting paid and you were missing about 38% of your salary and your take-home pay. You would notice it. So it's the same thing with the calorie counting. So for simple single ingredient foods, a banana, chicken breast, a boiled egg, AI is generally great. Some systems get within 10% accuracy, so it's still a big enough error. But for complex mixed dishes, your pad thais, your biryanis, lasagnas, spag balls, errors tend to climb that bit more dramatically. And then in 2024, University of Sydney study tested popular apps on 3 different diet types: Western, Asian, and what they called a recommended balanced diet. So for this kind of food recognition alone, MyFitnessPal correctly identified 38 out of 39 food items. That's 97%. Fantastic hit. 92%, Healthify Me scored 90%. So they're great. But here's the catch. Identifying the food correctly did not mean getting the calories right. For Western diet meals, apps overestimated energy on these meals by over 1,000 kilojoules, roughly about 240 calories, give or take. So for the Asian diet meals, they underestimated calories by 1,520 kilojoules. That's about 350, 360 calories. And individual food items show discrepancies ranging from about 5% all the way to 37% in overestimations alone. And then they looked out and spoke to registered dietitians, and they spoke to them on a testing panel in early 2005, so last year, and put 7 apps through 100 real meals over 3 months. And overall accuracy across apps range from, I think it was about 50 to 82% from the research, from my interpretation of it. And the AI preferring best on simple foods. They hit around 87% accuracy with that, and mixed meals dropped it to around 62%. So one of the most interesting benchmarks comes from SnapCalorie, which was built by ex-Google AI researchers. And they test their system on 5,000 weighed dishes. So for a 500 calorie meal on an iPhone Pro with the LiDAR depth sensor, they expected error was plus or minus 80 calories. On a regular iPhone without this depth sensor, it jumped to plus or minus 130 calories. So for comparison, people who eyeball the same portions without any app are all get off by an average of about 265 calories. So AI beats human guessing sometimes by a lot. So it's 130 with 80 calories with the more up-to-date iPhone, older iPhone 130, and then when people are doing it with their eyeballing, they're about 265 calories. So the overall picture from the research is showing AI food tracking is consistently better than eyeballing. I don't think that's a surprise though, and roughly similar or slightly less accurate than manual careful logging when you know what you're eating, but it falls apart with complex dishes, hidden ingredients, poor food quality, etc. So what are the real benefits? Let's give it credit. It's changing the game. AI calorie tracking from photos is generally compelling advantages. Number one, speed and reduced friction. When people start to count calories first, the one thing that they find is when they first start doing it, it's manual, it's tedious. You have this big database, find your food, figure out the portion, enter it. Studies consistently show that the biggest reason people quit calorie tracking is compliance fatigue. People can also leave things out on purpose or accidentally, and it just feels like too much work. It's taken away from the enjoyment of food, it's taken away from the enjoyment of the actual meal, and then but it's snapping this photo with your phone and getting it out. That takes a hell of a lot of bandwidth away from the whole thing. That's huge. And number two, it beats doing nothing. So if the alternative is zero tracking, just eating intuitively with no feedback, which takes practice, then even a 70% accurate AI estimate gives you a useful signal of what you do. And you might not know what you're eating. I know I say this. You might not know you're eating about 800 calorie salads until an app tells you there's a half cup of olive oil in there. Now, I did a little bit of a sample, and I had a look at 2 pieces of bread and put oil into the 2 pieces of bread, and I did another one with 2 pieces of bread and put a chocolate bar into beside 2 pieces of bread and used this, and I found that it didn't read what was in it didn't read track the olive oil, but it also didn't see the chocolate bar within the 2 pieces of bread. So you can see there's a discrepancy in the two. That something like a sandwich may not be the most accurate. So number 3 is especially good for restaurant meals. One of the hardest things to track manually is restaurant food. I normally give clients kind of a recommendation of about tracking about 1.2 to 1.5 of what they actually think the meal is. So if they think it's 800 calories multiplied by 1.2, so add on 20%, and that could be a little bit more accurate. You don't know exactly how it's made. Remember, the chef's job isn't to make it calorie friendly, it's to make it as palatable as possible and enjoyable as possible. AI apps trained on standardized menu items, your McDonald's orders, can be usually very accurate because the nutritional data is well documented. When it becomes harder is when it's in maybe your local restaurant down the road. Number 4 is it's better than eyeballing. Humans are awful calorie counters. It doesn't come natural to us. For many, they shouldn't do it. For many, they can do it. It can be a great educational tool for some, as long as we're not beating ourselves up for it. But through the SnapCalorie data, the research is pretty clear. Humans are terrible at estimating portion sizes. AI, even with its errors, typically cuts this error by half. And number 5, it increases dietary awareness. Sometimes even if the calorie number isn't perfect, photos and taking these photos can make you conscious of what you're eating. Now, the caveat behind that one is if you're with your kids and you're taking photos of your food, it can have a knock-on effect on their relationship with food. So that's a big caveat. And several studies have found that the act of logging, regardless of accuracy, changes eating habits because it's making someone a little bit more conscious of what they're doing. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here and talk about the drawbacks. Hidden calories are invisible. AI can only see what's in the photo. Like I spoke about earlier about putting the olive oil onto 2 pieces of bread and closing it up like a sandwich, or putting in the chocolate bar in between the two into the wrap or whatever it might be just for a photo. It cannot see the tablespoon of olive oil. It cannot see the butter. It cannot see the sauce. It cannot see a load of different things. Our research suggests that cooking fats alone can add about 100 to 300 calories to a meal that might be coming in a little bit less. So that's probably one of the biggest things. It really, really can underestimate what you're having. Number 2, portion depth is nearly impossible to judge. If you have a bowl, a flat photo is 2-dimensional. Food is 3-dimensional. A bowl of pasta that looks like a single serving might be actually a double. And AI systems without this LIDAR depth sensor which is the vast majority of phones, are essentially guessing the depth from these flat images. And that's a fundamental problem. Drawback number 3 is if your food is a little bit more, has a little bit more culture and a little bit more cuisine based, the University of Sydney found that the apps were less accurate on the Asian diet, and they can be off by 49 to 76% depending on what the meal is. Now that's substantial. And number 4 is it can give false precision breeds confidence. So there's something psychologically dangerous about a confident number and saying this is 100% what it is. An app that tells you your meal is exactly 623 calories can feel more accurate than you saying maybe 600. But the error bars on that 623 might be plus or minus 200. So even when we're looking at a pack of food, what we're seeing is that there could be a margin of error of about 20% on these. So you might think something is 800 calories, but it could be 1,000 calories. So the labels and packs of food aren't even correct. Now, I'm saying something might be tracking and keeping a log of something might be better than doing nothing in the right hands, but it's just kind of giving you a caveat that it might not be 100% accurate. And drawback 5 is cumulative errors and daily errors matter. So a 15% error sounds small, but if you're trying to hit 1,800 to 2,000 calories and you're off by 15% every single meal, that's 270 calories per day. Over a week, that's nearly 2,000 calories unaccounted for. And that can lead to frustration. That can lead to stalling or plateauing on weight loss progress. And then that can leave you wondering and getting frustrated and why things aren't moving. And then you beat yourself up, and then we binge, and then we beat ourselves up, and then we kind of look and poke at ourselves in the mirror. So it can have a massive impact on a load of different things. And the last one is it may reinforce an unhealthy relationship with food. For anyone prone to disordered eating or disordered eating pattern, having AI scrutinize every single thing you put in your mouth, attaching a precise number to it, can feed and can lead to obsessive behaviors. Technology doesn't know your history, doesn't know your psychology, and doesn't know your relationship with food. So what can you do instead? Maybe for some people, sometimes using boil in the bag rices can be helpful to kind of get a portion guide. Half a portion of boil in the bag rice is one person. And that can lead to that. Some people can say that maybe weighing your food can help, but that can lead to the other extreme of reinforcing unhealthy habits. So there's a caveat to that. There can be sometimes voice note logging with weights. Like there's apps like Snapcalorie lets you describe your meal verbally when you're preparing it, and you get the convenience of not typing it. And this is kind of sometimes a clever hybrid approach. Now it's not 100% accurate, because you might be seeing in a restaurant saying, "Oh, I've got this, 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 and this in my meal," but there sometimes you might be leaving out things that you can't see in your plate when you're actually doing it. Option three is, the recipes. Most people eat the same things Monday to Thursday. They're kind of like the solids, the friendly ones. They're more efficient, and this can take an awful lot of the brain power out of it. Kind of just having the same things over and over again, and having a little bit more variety on the weekends. It's what I do. What works for me. I'm busy during the week. I don't really like cooking, so on the Friday and Saturday will be the meals where it could be a little bit different. But generally during the week, I know by day what I'm having because it just works. We're trying to save money at the minute, so it helps to keep costs down, etc. So there's less food wastage, etc. And then option 4 is use AI photo tracking for trend data. Not exact numbers. Rather than trusting individual meal estimates, use the app consistently and look at weekly averages. So this can be consistent and can help to be consistent. But if the app always overestimates your meals by 10%, well, then over time that adding on 10% into your actual numbers can actually help. The other thing you can do is work with someone to help, because accuracy does matter. For eating disorder recovery, athletic performance, diabetes management, cholesterol management, and a professional can help to navigate these things with you, and they can catch the stuff or that AI misses, which is more the human side. And sometimes we forget that we are human. And a bonus tip, I would say, is always photograph your food before anything is added or removed. Get close, use lighting. If your app supports it, add a voice description of what's going on in case there was any cooking things that you did or whatever it might be. So what can we take away from today? AI calorie tracking photos is real. There's with real research behind it. It's not magic. It's not smoke and mirrors. For simple foods, it can be genuinely helpful. 10 to 15% error. For complex, simple, home cooked meals, it can be 20 to 40% off. It beats eyeballing, but just be careful with the compliance, with the eating disorder habits behind it. It reduces friction, helps to kind of gives you maybe a rougher estimate of kind of guessing in restaurants and stuff like that. But it can struggle with hidden foods in there, portion depth, and maybe the non-Western cuisines. If you want to use it, use it. If you don't. But I would just be careful. Now, don't get me wrong, on the date that I'm recording this in March 26, the technology is going to get better. So right now it may not be great, but it will get better. So if you found this at all useful, if you found it helpful at all, let us know. If I was doing it right now, I would probably be just going in with this an error side of caution of this isn't the be all and end all. I would go into it not hoping that's going to be 100% accurate. I would go into it with caution, and I would even look at, right, is MyFitnessPal or any of those other apps the best one for me if I'm going to logically or emotionally not count everything, leave things out, and only count when I'm in the mood to do it. That will be 3 red flags for me that someone shouldn't be counting calories. Counting calories is a great tool in the right hand, but you don't give a 4-year-old a hammer. So hopefully that helped, and hopefully that gives you a little bit more information on, is AI calorie counting accurate?